Joining us now to talk about Mitt Romney's pick, our deputy campaign manager for the Obama campaign, Stephanie Cutter, who is in Chicago this morning, and Eric Fehrnstrom, senior advisor to Mitt Romney, who joins us from Charlotte, North Carolina. And Eric, let's start with you. Describe for us how and when Mitt Romney offered the VP slot to Paul Ryan and what he said when he accepted.
Well, he called him on August 1st, but on that day, the governor had just returned from his overseas trip. He had made his decision that he wanted Paul Ryan to join him on the ticket. He reached out to him, set up a meeting, and the meeting took place on August 5th. That was last Sunday. They met at the private home of Beth Myers, who is a top aide and handled the vice presidential selection process. And it was in a private meeting in Beth's dining room. Where Governor Romney offered Paul Ryan a spot on the ticket, and he accepted.
Eric, there were obviously a number of politicians under consideration: Rob Portman, Tim Pawlenty. What was it about Paul Ryan that made him the choice for Mitt Romney in the end, and was this a difficult decision?
It wasn't difficult at all for the governor. This was a big, bold, courageous choice by Governor Romney. It indicates that he's not only interested in taking on the jobs crisis in this country, but he also wants to address the fiscal crisis as well. This is no time for complacency. We have 23 million Americans out of work. We have more people falling into poverty than at any time in our recent past. And we have massive debt and deficits that imperil our future. And I think in the selection of Paul Ryan as a running mate, Mitt Romney has claimed for the Republican ticket the mantle of change. I think it also indicates that Mitt Romney is going to be running an issue-oriented campaign waged on big ideas and not engage in the type of nasty, negative politics that we've seen from the Barack Obama campaign.
Well, Stephanie, what do you think about that? Was this the running mate that the Obama campaign was expecting, and is he a big, bold choice?
Well, I definitely think he's a big, bold choice because it really does say something about Mitt Romney. It says something about Mitt Romney that he's picking someone who has a budget plan under which Mitt Romney would pay less than 1% in taxes, but the middle class would pay more than $2,000 more in taxes. It says something about Mitt Romney that he picked someone with a budget plan that cuts 10 million kids, cuts their college scholarships for 10 million kids, throws 200,000 kids off Head Start, cuts veterans benefits, clean energy benefits, all of the investments we need to grow our economy. And it says something about Mitt Romney that he chose someone who has a budget that really it would be the end of Medicare as we know it, would increase costs on seniors and throw them into the private market. So that is big, bold, and courageous, but I don't think that's the prescription the American people are looking for. I heard Eric talk about the type of campaign that we're running compared to the type of the campaign that Mitt Romney is running. We'd love to have a substantive debate. As of yesterday, Mitt Romney put some substance on the table. We'd love to talk about it. The Romney-Ryan budget is not a budget for growth and prosperity. It's a budget for redistributing wealth to the top, taking it from the middle up to the top.
Eric, I want to ask you about that because you knew that this was the argument that you were going to hear from Democrats. By picking Paul Ryan, is Mitt Romney tying himself to every element of the Ryan plan, the cuts to college loan programs and food stamps and Medicaid? Can he separate himself from that, or is he embracing it?
Well, let me just answer Stephanie by saying this is the same type of garbage talk from the Obama campaign we've heard almost since day one. They've started off with petty, untrue characterizations of Mitt Romney and his record, and have now grown to massive exaggerations. Look, Paul Ryan has a budget. Barack Obama has no plan. He's the sitting president, and it's amazing that he has no policy agenda for his second term. No new ideas about how to get this economy moving, no new ideas about how to create jobs, no new ideas about how to control spending. He promised to cut the deficit in half. Instead, it's exploded in size. He's added $5 trillion to our deficit. Our country can't continue down this path. Now, we're making a bet. We're making a bet that Americans are more interested in a campaign that's waged on real ideas, including entitlement reform, and that a substantive campaign conducted on the high ground is going to trump the type of petty, negative politics that we're hearing from Barack Obama. They're really running a campaign without a conscience. If I had to give their campaign playbook a title, I'd call it 50 Shades of Mud.
I think we've seen some petty negative politicking from both sides this week, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But Stephanie, what about this argument by Republicans who point to Paul Ryan's plan and say, hey, it may not all be popular, but at least he's making the tough choices. We've got a $15 trillion debt. We've got entitlements that are exploding, and at least he's willing to put his plan out on the table, while the president, at least initially, did not embrace his plan, the Bowles-Simpson plan.
Well, Nancy, all you have to do is go to the White House website to see the president's plan. It's been out there for more than a year. It's a $4 trillion deficit reduction plan that does make those tough choices, but it makes tough choices on both sides. It's not an ideological document like Paul Ryan's plan. It actually asks the wealthy to pay their fair share, cuts waste from spending, programs that we don't need, but still allows us to make the critical investments we need to grow our economy. Now, I want to answer Eric for a second. He thinks that talking about the substance of Paul Ryan's plan, the Romney-Ryan plan, is mudslinging. Then what type of election do you think this is? These are the issues that matter. Everybody knows the fundamental issue at stake here is the middle class. If you're not going to talk about how are you going to strengthen the middle class, then how can you have a substantive debate?
But you said that the president talks about his plan on the website, but what about on the campaign trail, Stephanie? Mostly on the campaign trail, we hear him talking about raising taxes on the top 2%. Where are the other bold plans that require sacrifice from the rest of the country?
WhiteHouse.gov, Nancy. Go there and you'll see the entire plan. He's given speeches in front of Congress on it. He does talk about it on the campaign trail. It's the only serious deficit reduction plan out there right now. Everybody knows. Why don't you ask independent economists what they think about the Paul Ryan budget? It's not a serious document. It doesn't do one thing to create one job.
Tell them what the plan is right now.
Okay, I want to switch gears here.
I'll be happy to tell you what the plan is right now.
What is it?
Well, ask the wealthy to pay a little bit more. Cut waste from the government. Reform Medicare, more than $300 billion in savings from Medicare, on top of the savings we've already achieved. I heard Mitt Romney deride the $700 billion cuts in Medicare that the president achieved through health care reform. You know what those cuts are? It's taking subsidies away from insurance companies, taking rebates away from prescription drug companies. Is that what Mitt Romney wants to protect? And interestingly enough, Paul Ryan protected those cuts in his budget, and that's the only thing that extended the solvency of the Medicare program.
What about
That's a serious debate. That's how you have a serious substantive debate about the issues.
Eric, what about that point that you're not just cutting the social safety net pretty drastically under the Paul Ryan plan, but you're changing Medicare pretty significantly, and you're lowering taxes very significantly on the wealthy.
Yes. Nancy, let me just say, I agree with Stephanie. We should cut waste from the federal budget. But we need to go further than that, Stephanie. We need to put on the table serious substantive proposals that address the entitlement problem. These are the cost drivers in the budget. Mitt Romney has talked about, with respect to Social Security, lengthening the retirement age and changing the benefit calculations such that upper income earners, for our future retirees, will not be earning benefits at as fast a rate as they used to. With respect to Medicare, he's got two core principles, and they happen to sync up with Paul Ryan. The first is we're not going to do anything that will affect current beneficiaries or those who are close to retirement age. But for future retirees, we need to create a new premium voucher program that preserves the existing Medicare system as an option, but also introduces new private health care options so that we can have competition and choice. If we do that, then we'll finally begin to get a hold of the massive budget busters in the federal budget and put us on a path towards sustainability.
There are a lot of similarities, Eric, but what about that?
In great detail,
what about the fact that your
I just told you in great detail and specifics what Mitt Romney's plan is with respect to entitlements, and your response is Barack Obama is going to cut waste from the budget.
All right, we don't have a lot more time, so I want to move on to another topic,
Nancy,
Eric.
I do have one question for Eric. Does Eric think it's right for this country for Mitt Romney to pay less than 1% in taxes, but you're asking senior citizens who rely on Medicare to pay up to $6,000 more for their health care? Does he think that's right? For Mitt Romney to pay less than 1% in taxes, but the middle class gets a $2,000 tax increase. That's the budget that Paul Ryan has on the table, and that's the budget that you just wrapped your arms around.
Stephanie, you just told us You just admitted there's only one candidate in the race who has cut benefits for current Medicare beneficiaries. That's Barack Obama. And he didn't do it, by the way, to create
Eric, I want to ask you a question on another topic because we don't have that much more time. Eric, I want to ask you about foreign policy for a moment. Obviously, Paul Ryan knows his way around a budget, but is it a problem that neither of the two men on your ticket have any significant foreign policy experience? I mean, we're in a time of great instability in the Middle East, a civil war in Syria, tensions with Iran. Is it a problem that these two men, while very experienced, don't have much experience on the world stage?
I think Paul Ryan has the same amount of foreign policy experience that Barack Obama had when he was sworn in as president. Look, Paul Ryan's been in the Congress for 14 years, longer than Barack Obama when he decided to run for president. He's got oversight responsibilities for the budget, including the defense budget. He has leaders, governors, generals, members of the military brass calling him for advice and support for their programs. Of course he's prepared. One of the first criterions that the governor had for the selection of his running mate was he wanted somebody who was capable of stepping into the top job if circumstances ever called for that. He's got that with Paul Ryan. But I think what Americans will really like about this ticket is the way they complement one another. Mitt Romney has 25 years of private sector experience, a wealth of knowledge about the economy, and what Paul Ryan brings to the table is deficit-cutting credibility and also knowledge about every nook and cranny of the federal budget. And as I said, this indicates Mitt Romney is serious about solving the jobs crisis in this nation and also the fiscal crisis.
Stephanie, very quickly on foreign policy.
Well, I think that the most important criteria is the person at the top having the judgment on foreign policy that you need in a commander-in-chief. And I think that we saw just a week and a half ago that Mitt Romney didn't have it. He went on a foreign policy trip and ended up insulting every one of our allies and embarrassing this country. So I think that was proof positive that Mitt Romney doesn't have the judgment necessary to be America's commander-in-chief. And whether Paul Ryan can help him with that, we'll see. But I think it's the person at the top that you need to see if they can
Stephanie Cutter,
test.
Eric Fehrnstrom, thank you both so much for joining us this morning. I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more from both of you.